Finally, after a lot of waiting, a double podium for Ferrari. For those who don't understand what I am talking about, I will definitely tell you. But before I start, there is something very important that you need to know, which is the fact that my name is Farah and this is the Pitlin Talk. The Formula 1 season started already in Bahrain, and last Sunday we watched the Australian Grand Prix. And finally, the results made up for the fact that I woke up at 5:20 a.m. in a work day in Ramadan. So here is what happened. After qualifying, Max Verstappen had the pole position, while Carlos Sainz was in P2 and Sergio Perez was in P3. However, Perez received a penalty that dropped him to P6 for impeding the Haas driver Nico Hülkenberg during the qualifying, which resulted in Lando Norris starting from P3 and Charles Leclerc from P4. You might think that everything will just go as normal, right? Wrong. Because the race started and Sainz passed Verstappen in lap 2. And after I was saying to myself, did I really wake up super early in Ramadan to listen to the Dutch anthem played for the third time in a row? Finally, my adrenaline surged. But does it end like this? Absolutely not. Because later on in lap 3, we were shocked when smoke started to come out of Max's car due to a problem with the right rear brake. And this forced Max to retire from the race in lap 5 for the first time since the Australian Grand Prix in 2022. Don't get me wrong, I love Max and I do respect him because he's a very talented driver and I certainly wasn't happy that he retired this way. But a Ferrari double podium is something I have been wishing for a while now. After a while, Leclerc passes Norris and he keeps the second place for himself, ending the race in P2 while Carlos Sainz is in P1, which is the first double podium since the Bahrain Grand Prix in 2022, where Verstappen had to retire as well. But at that time, the first place went to Charles Leclerc and the second place went to Carlos Sainz. Is this just what happened? Nope. Because during lap 17, Lewis Hamilton's car engine breaks down and he also retires from the race. Not only that, but in the final lap, George Russell was in P7 and he was chasing Fernando Alonso in P6. But it is said that Alonso slowed down significantly 100 meters before the normal braking zone, and this led to Russell hitting the barriers and the car literally flipping in the middle of the track. Alonso received a 20-second penalty, dropping him to P8. But do you know what's really weird? During the Singapore Grand Prix last year, Carlos Sainz was the one who won it, and George Russell crashed in the final lap and retired. And during the British Grand Prix in 2022, Carlos Sainz also won it, and also George Russell crashed and retired. George, my son, what is wrong with you? One of the pit lane's disasters was Valtteri Bottas' pit stop, which was 28 seconds long. And this is not the first time because it happened at the Bahrain GP and during the Saudi Arabian GP. But the victim then was Zhou Guanyu. Honestly, Kick Sauber seems like they are falling apart and they need to learn from their mistakes if they want to survive this season. The most important thing is that the horse won, making its fans happy with Carlos Sainz. Carlos Sainz, the same man Ferrari decided to give his seat to Lewis Hamilton in 2025. Carlos Sainz, who started the season and focused on making Ferrari regret what they had done. And he proved that after he snatched the victory in Australia. And this was only 2 weeks after he had gone under a surgery to remove his appendix, which prevented him from participating in the Saudi Arabian GP. Personally, despite my love for Hamilton, but from the beginning, it felt a little weird that they were replacing the only driver who was able to beat Redbull last year. What do you think about this? Did Ferrari make a wrong decision when they chose Lewis Hamilton over Carlos Sainz? I would love to read your opinions in the comments. And since we are talking about Carlos Sainz, let's spill some tea. Red Bull's team principal Christian Horner said that Carlos Sainz is a candidate to be Max Verstappen's teammate at Red Bull. It is known that Sainz was Verstappen's teammate in the Toro Rosso team, which is Red Bull's second team, but he left in 2018 for Renault. Not only that, because Horner said that Fernando Alonso is also a candidate to be Max's teammate next year. From all of that, we understand two things. First, that there is a big chance that Checo's contract will not be renewed by the end of this season. And second, Red Bull's seat is reserved for whoever speaks Spanish. As for the Mercedes team principal, Toto Wolff, He did not hold back and said that Max Verstappen is a candidate to replace Lewis Hamilton at Mercedes next year should he become available. He also said that among the possible candidates are Carlos Sainz and Fernando Alonso. Really, guys? Isn't it a little early for the silly season? Now, we talked about the Australian GP and the latest gossips in the community. I'm sure you know that it is time to start our weekly session of learning Formula 1. Let's start with an easy one. Overtaking, which means a driver chasing another driver and taking his place, and that is what happened when Sainz overtook Verstappen during the Australian GP. Getting lapped means that the drivers at the back are being passed by the drivers at the front who finished a whole lap, and they start to pass the drivers at the back of the grid. In this case, those drivers at the back need to open the way for the driver passing. Undercut. It is when a driver enters the pit lane to change his tires before his opponent, while overcut is the complete opposite and the driver keeps his tires for the longest time possible. Now, you might ask yourselves, why would a team keep their drivers outside the pit lane while this might affect their performance and their positions? Some teams use this strategy so they don't waste time changing the tires more than once, because when the driver finally changes his tires, the rest of the drivers start to enter the pit lane for the second time, so this gives him an advantage over them. Furthermore, some teams bet that the safety car is going to enter, during which drivers can change their tires without worrying about their positions, because all the time most of the cars will do the same and all of them will be forced to drive at a low speed behind the safety car. Sometimes this strategy succeeds and other times it fails, like what happened with Carlos Sainz in 2023 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, when Ferrari kept waiting for the safety car and this made Carlos lose his position. And finally, he DNF'd. Box is a call for the driver to enter the pit lane to change the tires or fix something in the car. He just pitted. It is said when a driver enters the pit lane and changes his tires. Penalty. It is a punishment that falls on the driver for several reasons, including overtaking another driver during a yellow flag, speeding at the pit lane, impeding another driver, or causing a crash. The ones who decide and apply these penalties are the stewards, who do that according to the rules of Formula 1 and the FIA. The first one is the drive-through. This penalty is when the driver enters the pit lane and he will be forced to continue driving at the specified speed without stopping to change the tires, which of course will cause him to lose time. Stop-go penalties. The second penalty occurs when the driver reaches the pit lane to change the tires and he is forced to stop for a specific period of time, which may be 5 seconds or 10 seconds, without changing anything or making any repairs to his vehicle. These two penalties are applied during the race for minor violations such as speeding at the pit lane, unsafe release from the pit stop, or overtaking during the yellow flag. This wasted time is considered to be as a punishment. Grid penalty. This penalty is applied after qualifying, and it requires the driver to start the race from a lower position than the position in which he qualified in, like what happened to Sergio Perez in Australia when he qualified third but was forced to start from P6 because of the penalty. Other times it is for technical reasons such as changing the engine or mechanical components in excess of the number allocated for each season. Usually minor changes to the engine and the gearbox can cause the driver to drop 5 or 10 places, while major changes can cause him to start from the back of the grid. Penalty points. If a driver accumulates 12 penalty points within a 12-month period, he automatically gets banned from participating in a race. As soon as the driver serves this penalty, 12 months will be reset. The points he collects expire after 12 months since their imposition. The driver with the most points accumulated last year is Sergio Perez with a total of 7 points. Race disqualifications. This is a penalty imposed by the stewards for several reasons, including violations they encounter in the cars after the race or exceeding the fuel flow limits. The driver who is penalized loses any points, even if he is on the podium. His qualifying times will also be deleted, forcing him to start from the pits in the next race. The last one is a season disqualifications. This penalty is applied when major technical violations occur that raise doubts about the team performance during the season, such as using bad traction control system. The FIA can disqualify an entire team from the Drivers' and Constructors' Championship, and the team will be stripped of all the points they earned during the season. Now we have reached the end of the episode. I hope you find the information I said beneficial, and I really hope you enjoyed the Australian Grand Prix like I did. Now, if you want to learn more about Formula 1, wait for the next episode in the Pitlane Talk.